Greetings, traveler.
In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a Teron game where you get a lot of hero power value. I hope you guys enjoy the post-game commentary. Let us know what you think. Here we go. We're playing in Wisdom of Ulduar. That just means that every 3 turns we're going to have to pay attention, so we buff the right thing. You guys see here that I take Teron over Murloc Homes. That's because Pirates, Elementals, Murlocs are out. Those are the best strategies in my opinion, but they're not available. So we're probably going to end up playing something like Beast or Undead, and Teron is very, very good at that. We see here that I hero power it as null, and that's not just to click the button. You get an extra attack, because the null has one friendly minion that died itself. So it is quite useful to have that. So turn 2 here, there's really not that much to go over. We are just going to follow the normal curve. No reason to stay low or anything. We are looking to get a nice hero power target. So that could be a skull, that could be a sewer rat. So we're really wanting to see what the shop has in store for us. And here it is. Not what we were thinking about initially, but we are playing in Wisdom of Ulduar, so that Trickster can be 15 health. And because we're playing Teron, we can always kill it off. So that is a huge, huge, huge tempo swing where we are now really strong. We get an additional 15 health on one of our units. Now that's not as good as it sounds, just because what you just saw, a lot of the time the very high health, low damage minion is going to lose 15 health by hitting into the 15 damage minion. But it's still better than not having an additional 15 health. As you can see, it did help out there. Now here we can see that the shop isn't that good, and we see that the Malygos gives us the thumbs up. That is generally the signal of, hey, I'm thinking about leveling. You want to do that too, so we both greed and we don't take too much damage because one person's buying a lot of stuff and the other person isn't. And because our shop was not great, we said, hey, that sounds great, let's do that. There was a scout, which we then cycled to maybe get Shell Collector or maybe get a Surf and Serve, just anything useful. Shell Collector giving you the extra gold and Surf and Serve giving you an extra death rattle on the board. And we did hit the Shell Collector, so you know, if you're gonna have 1 gold left after leveling, pretty much always cycle the scout if there is any type of economy in the game, because you might just end up keeping an additional unit. Here, this shop is really not that good, and if we level fast, we have a higher chance of finding a Nubarak, which we can hero power. We could find a Rylak, which we can hero power. We could get a Raptor, a Sly Raptor that we can hero power. So there's a lot of good hero power targets on 4, so we want to skip past that. Now we did the thumbs up. Unfortunately, Lich said, that's great, a weak board. Let me buy a lot of 3-drops and deal a lot of damage to you. This fight was actually looking pretty fine, because I thought my 15 damage imp would kill the 15 health Risen Rider. Now, because there is a skull, it actually healed the Risen Rider twice, which means that we end up taking 14 damage, or however much it was, is way, way, way too much. Whereas normally my little minion in the back would have cleared out their whole board and we would have taken 0, which is ridiculous. Now, because of that, we do need to adjust our play a little bit. We can't really go to 5 early or anything like that. We really don't want to take any damage. You see that we picked up a Nest Matron. I think that that's pretty good on Teron, just because you are going to always lose 1 additional minion, and we have to find something to buff this turn because it is the Ulduar turn. So if you make a 15-15 Nest Matron, she might absorb the death rattle from the imp. She's likely going to survive some hits, so you're more likely to get more economy, more money. More money means more options. Maybe we can level a bit earlier then, just because we'll have a full board due to all this extra money and we can still level. And the Taunt Naga we picked up is really there just to make sure that this imp dies. Now that we actually have a 15 damage unit, number 2 on the board, the Nest Matron in this case, it makes sense to taunt the imp, because adding another 15 health to the Nest Matron is really, really good. Okay, so we're still looking for a great hero power target. And here I spot a Rylak and a Death Swarmer. Now, if you haven't done this before, this is not obvious, but the Rylak triggers the battle cries of the Death Swarmer, and you can hero power to kill it off an additional time, which means you scale your undead attack very quickly. We get pretty damn lucky and find another Death Swarmer in the next shop, so we get super rewarded for our decision here. Now, unfortunately, my positioning isn't 100% here. I should definitely move this big imp up more, and I don't know why I buffed a Rylak. I think it was because I was going to hero power the Rylak, and I said, hey, I guess I get more value this way. But it's like, no, that's not more value. You should probably throw it on the imp, or at the very least the matron. Now, had I positioned a little bit better, this first Death Swarmer that you see on the board would not have suicided before the Rylak died, or at least there would have been a much, much lower chance. Now, because we're Teron, we always get some value. We'll always get the hero power off, so we get the 2 battle cries at minimum. Now, after starting this buff train, we can call it that, we are looking to find units that are actually going to make use of this increased attack. The main thing people do wrong when they have this kind of play is that what they would want now is, oh, I'm going to then add a Bran, and I'm going to add Titus, and I'm just going to get so much attack. And they end up with Rylak, maybe 2 Rylaks, 2 Death Swarmers, Bran / Titus, and they have maybe 1 actual undead unit that uses the attack properly. Granted, the Death Swarmers are undead, so you do get some value, but it's really not anywhere near as good as the Reborns. It's for that reason that you see that I favor these Reborn Quilboar over that Anubarak. I think a lot of people would have said, oh, let's just take Anubarak, but hero powering Anubarak is not better than hero powering the Rylak, so it's just +1 attack. If we have the Reborn undead cards, we're getting twice as much value as that initial Anubarak body. Now, I did choose the level because, as we mentioned, because of the Nest Matron, we had enough gold to level and fill our board. If I had to choose between leveling or buying those Reborn Quilboar, which are also undead, which is why they're good, I would have definitely bought those Quilboar. But it's really the option to do both that tempted me to tier, because if we triple now, we can go for Summoner, we can go for Sister, we can roll into we can roll into either a champion, right, that gives us additional attack scaling. Maybe we can even get out of our Rylak eventually. But yeah, we do lose the fight, so I am pretty scared now. I need to fill my board with Reborn Undead. That is essentially on my mind. So this duo would be cool to triple and then get 6 drops, but we can't do it. You see that I still haven't played my golden card. That is because I'm kind of hoping to open up a Bran to get the double dip and then maybe just sell the Bran straight away, just to get the 2 extra attack on my undead. Now, we do triple into a Sister, which is great. So I end up picking a Skull because that's an extra Reborn target. And it is going to benefit from both the attack that we are gaining from the Rylak on the Death Swarmer, but it's also going to feed the additional health from the Sister. Now you see that I'm allocating these gems in maybe a little bit of a random fashion. I think the one on the Skull wasn't necessarily that useful yet. I'm mainly looking to get my undead units out of blaster range, because dealing 3 AoE is a very common way of dealing with an undead board, because undeads have a ton of damage on them, but usually not a lot of health. Now, because we have Sister, we are going to change that, but a lot of undead boards don't actually have Sister. Now, this person has 2 huge Sindores, which is really annoying and a little fishy. But, I'm assuming they just had one, and they saw that they were fighting undead and they say, oh, what the hell, let's just pick up another. Now, luckily, we don't die here because that was very, very possible. The second Sindori really, really missed. Whew, okay, so we're very happy about that. So here, we're just going to transform the 5-drop to check. Do we get another sister? Do we get the summoner, right? The brand increases the scaling, like we just said, but I don't think I can afford to have another board slot for brand. Now, why do I buy the Rylak if I say I don't have board space for brand? It's because I might triple the Rylak and find one of the 6 drops that I want. So I'm not even that interested in having the golden Rylak's effect. I'm more interested in tripling it and using the triple to find the undead cards that I want. So, excuse me, you see that I finish buffing here. This takes them to 7 HP, which means it plays around Titus plus Blaster. Again, quite a common combo to deal with undead. This is, again, a very scary fight, because when you look at their board, they have the secret minion. Now, this was pre-patch, so it's still a death rattle. Just got changed to be an end of turn effect, but the effect is the same here. They get a secret. So if that secret would have been splitting image and then I split that Murgle while it's already reborn or something horrible, then we would have died here. Now, luckily their secret is, I'm assuming, competitive spirit, so it does nothing for the combat, and I end up killing the Murgle before it reborns. Now, because of that, we are much more likely to survive, and you can see that in the end, right, this low damage Nest Matron is not enough to kill us. So, whew, very, very, very nice combat. We really needed that. Now that we survived those 2 very dangerous combats, we were able to still gain the attack from the Rylak, and we set ourselves up with Sister. So, a lot of our, I would say, weaknesses as undead are being shored up. We are going to be immune to Blaster, and we are going to have a lot of attack, so we're going to be able to deal with big stats. So we've essentially survived the most dangerous part of the game here. But as I mentioned, it could have definitely gone south. Now, we took a quick look at our opponent here and saw that they were undead. Now that we've scaled so much attack already and I found the other sister, I'm totally fine just selling off the Rylak Death Swarmer combo and just rely on the sisters now. Because we are Teron, we can just hero power one of the reborn minions and get an additional reborn proc. Because you can see here that my board gets buffed immediately at the start of the fight, no matter what, because my hero power goes off first. And then the skull comes back with reborn still on it. So we do get that additional proc overall, which is just amazing, right? You can see that once we are in this position, it's looking very, very stable. Now, keep in mind that had we had a little bit better luck against that Lich in the early game where we took 14, this would have not been anywhere near as scary because we would have been okay losing to either the ETC or the earlier boards. I can't remember, but it was, you know, pretty close. Oh, it was the Lich with the two Sindores, which was very, very counter to our board. But, you know, it all evens out in the end here because even though we got unlucky on the Lich fight, we got lucky on the others. So we are alive. We have our scaling. Now, this is pretty interesting. You see this skull, and I think a lot of people just like, all right, I'm buying that immediately. But what does that do for us? It means that I have 1 fewer reborn minion on my board, which means that we get much less scaling from the sisters, and you also have 1 fewer unit on the board to take advantage of your attack damage aura that we farmed earlier in the game with the Rylak. The positioning here is to not nerf the sisters stats because we are playing in Ulduar, so I have to find 1 unit to move there. We are fighting Beast, so the straight shot is still quite useful. A lot of the time people will have a taunted raptor, and then that raptor will have gotten reborn over the course of the game. So it's generally speaking not a bad idea if you see Beasts to keep a straight shot on your board. Now we have 3 gold left. which means that I just buy the glow scale. I'm not super intimidated by the beast board, so I'm okay just buying and holding to use that for an all-in later. So it means we can get a divine shield on a unit that's not supposed to have it, so a sister or whatever else we want to put divine shield on. All right. Yeah, as I mentioned, we really got through that super scary part, and now we're just large. So it's quite difficult for the beast player. You can see that we had a very high win percent here. Okay, so very important, especially in the top 3, top 4, to really look at your opponents, because sometimes you're going to just autopilot execute a strategy and end up missing a very important tech piece. Like, for instance, let's say they're both undead. I should probably keep this trade shot because it's a really good card against undead, but if they're playing dragons, it doesn't matter. Now, you saw I skipped the health demon, the one that costs 3 health, and here it is again. It's because I'm on 9, and I'm not really that interested in putting myself in one-shot range if a token survives. Now, if I really, really, really needed the money, I would probably take the damage because it's not super likely that we're going to survive if we do lose. But because we are, because our money worked out perfectly fine, we're not going to take the damage. So here we can really see that relatively to the last time we fought to ETC, our board is so much better, right? We improved so much more. Their straight shot again did nothing, which is fantastic for us. But I would want to say, look at our board, especially given that we have Divine Shield on the Sister, especially given that we have the Gargoyle, which procs somewhat easily due to hero powering one of my units, killing it off immediately. I think we would have been okay regardless. But then again, right, it is part of the game. You get some good hits, you get some bad hits, but yeah, this board now looks very, very stable, where we are getting that value. You can see that, you know, our undeads are becoming so big that they're having a hard time reborning before the sister dies. Okay, so here we do have the ice block protection on the ETC, so we are not in the top 2 just yet. So ETC is pretty much always a danger. There are a lot of things that can be done with buddies, especially with the secret buddy. But as I mentioned, we're really strong right now, so we're getting a lot of our scaling. So now we're going to be up against the Malygos, and what's going through my head at this stage of the game is really just, okay, how do I make my board better? And at the same time, how do I avoid them messing with my board? So Sindore is the most likely thing that people are going to throw at me. So I need to think about, is there a way that I can prevent them from getting that Sindore value? You see that I skipped the skull again? That is because I don't have a replacement undead ready. So if I triple the undead and I don't find a good replacement, like a summoner, or even if I get the golden sister, I won't have a replacement undead ready. I would much rather just run 7 units than triple the skull and YOLO it. Now again, because we have 3 gold left at the end of this turn, we can buy that micro mummy, and now if I hit the triple skull, you can just buy it because you can end on a micro mummy and you'll have another reborn thing on the board. So this is really, you know, you versus the guys she told you not to worry about because they are undead, but we are not the same. They do have a Murgle, which is good. They have the summoner, they have the reborns, it's all good, but when you just look at the raw numbers on the cards, our cards value trade their cards because we've just farmed so much health with these sisters. You can see that that sister just took 27 damage and she has only 84 health left. So especially the sisters in the back are so big that unless both of them get targeted by a Murgle, which is like really unlikely, we are, you know, we're pretty much always going to be fine. So this is really just the product of being Teron, being that little bit greedy early with that Rylak getting the extra attack, and then just being able to go full on health scaling with the sisters afterwards. As I said, a really difficult package to beat at this stage of the game, where we're just undead, but better. All right. So the triple skull presents itself yet again, which is normal. It's a 2-drop, it's not that rare. Now I end up taking it finally because I have that micro mummy spare. So I may as well check. Do I get a better undead? And we get a Murgle, which I would say is a better undead. So now we just have a Murgle extra. I buy this Deep Sea, and that is because of what I said earlier. I'm thinking about what does my opponent want to do here? Like if I'm playing versus my board, what would I do? I would probably use a straight shot and try to get value by removing as many reboards as I can, maybe running 2 straight shots. So therefore, I'm going to put the taunt on the sister, which is normally a big no-no. You don't want to taunt the sister because that's your scaling engine. But especially because this is potentially the last fight, I would rather tank one of the straight shot hits on the sister. But look at this! Our opponent did a little bit of a, you know, this is a cool play. You might not remember exactly what the last board looked like, but it was not dragons. It was just some random token stuff with some Venom and Murgle in the back. So what happened here, and actually took me a moment to realize what they did, they found the ixxdeee buddy, and they played that with Golden Bran, which gave them 3 dragons. And then what I presume happened is they used the tier 5 dragon that can force proc the battle cry again to give them another 3 dragons. So 3 tier 6s for Kali, 3 tier 6s for warping, and then they just like went ham, buffed their dragons, and be like, please God, be big enough to beat him now. And had they had another turn, they would have probably outstatted me. So we killed them right on time because that was a really sick dragon transition, and props to my opponent for trying it. All right, guys, GG, and I see you in the next one.